That's always the fun part is, all right, when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? All right, it looks like we are live. Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. This is, episode 6, season 2, episode 6 of the Making Awesome podcast. Yes, Nadav, you would be first to comment, because that's always a fun one. We are going to be talking about the Thingiverse leak. It has been kind of the big news in the industry right now, and I am joined by my buddy Robert, a first on the podcast. A lot of times we have the same people over and over again because they're basically staff. Robert does not work with us. You are a good friend of mine, so please go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell the folks at home all about you, who you are, where you're from, what you did, and as long as you love me. Give them the Backstreet Boys.
All right. Well, hi, I'm Robert. I have been a software engineer for 5 years now. Well, it's 5 years now. And I guess that I'm here to provide a little bit of technical background on what's going on. And of course, Fran, of course, I love you.
Thank you. That's really all that we ever ask these days. Do we want to tell each other tell the people at home how we know each other? Do you want to talk about that at all or no?
Yeah, why not?
All right. Tell them how we met.
Grant and I met through swing dance. We both happen to enjoy going out doing a little bit of swing dance here in Florida, and we met just randomly at one of the dances.
And it appears that our significant others are kindred spirits and that we also might be kindred spirits. It's kind of odd, the amount of crossover that occurs in our lives to each other, right? Mm-hmm. Like, Amber, everyone here knows Amber. She is getting into stained glass, and your significant other was thinking about doing it too. And now Amber, buddy, Amber now has 2 glass grinders. So I'm fairly certain Amber is enabling your significant other to get into this hobby. So
oh yeah, no, she is. Kelly's already told me.
Yeah. But it's a lot of fun, and back before everything happened, we used to hang out every weekend or every Sunday night minimally. And I'll tell you, anyone that's out there that says I don't know where to meet other geeks like myself, good Lord, go take up swing dancing. 1, it's a lot of fun. 2, very attractive people on both sides of the playing field, and somewhere in the middle too. But it's nothing but geeks. I have literally walked off of the dance floor and walked into a conversation about blockchain, not knowing what the hell they're talking about. But it was crazy interesting to me because these are people that are inherently really, really intelligent about very specific things, and all they want to do is talk to each other about it, and it makes me so happy. Duff says it's great when you have close friends with similar interests, and I could not agree more. And when this leak happened, I said, I there are 2 people that I know who to reach out to. One of them is here talking with me, and I know the other one is in the comments, but he didn't feel comfortable. And then there was a third person, but they definitely cannot come on here. They are way qualified, to the point of I can't tell you their name, because things are pretty awesome, and they have given me a lot of awesome information about this. But Robert, I want to hear it from your perspective. What happened with this Thingiverse leak, and what does it really mean in the data security industry?
Well, I guess to start, to high level, they got hacked. And it's that simple. There's, from what I've read on it, there's a number of things that we can take from this. And I guess I can go into more detail from that. So the first thing that had to happen was some type of vulnerability had to exist, which allowed the attackers to access private information. So whether that was through SQL injection or some form of being able to exploit possibly admin logins, but I'm not sure how, but they got in to where the information was being held. Once there, they were able to retrieve a large amount of information from the databases. And at that point, there should have been additional lines of security, such as encryption, hashing, some way that makes it so that it's very hard for somebody who's not supposed to be able to get to the information is able to get to it. However, my understanding is that one of the big problems is that they were in the process of transitioning from an extremely insecure form of hashing, SHA-1, I believe, to what is actually a very, very secure form of hashing. But the issue is that during the transition, they didn't take measures to protect the insecure information. They didn't double hash it, which in that case, you would take the bad hash. And I guess a way that we could talk about this is they had a zip tie, which was the bad type of encryption. And then they were trying to get to a really good form of encryption of a lock on the door. But the issue is that the entire point of a hash function is that it's one directional. You can't go backwards. And so they were not able to know what the original password was in order to transfer it over to the better form of locking. However, there's a way to get around that. You have your zip tie protecting the password. You can't get to the password, but it's very insecure. But what you can do is you can just put a lock over the zip tie. You can just...
Or more zip ties.
Hash the hash.
Amber found this out last holiday season. If you add enough zip ties, it becomes very difficult to get in. However, if you don't secure the box, all you gotta do is remove just a couple of those zip ties and you can get what is inside of it. I'm still salty about that. I spent like 20 minutes adding all those zip ties to that box.
But yeah, so due to this fact, a significant portion of the information was being protected by what is a broken hashing function, which means that there are methods that can be used to exploit vulnerabilities in the fundamental way that it protects the information so that people are able to eventually get to the data. They can do this through rainbow tables or possibly collisions, which is where two passwords actually encrypt to the same thing on the other side.
How common is that?
It depends on the form that you're using. So with SHA-1, the main vulnerability, there's three main vulnerabilities that I know of for SHA-1. The first one being that rainbow tables exist, which means somebody went out there and was like, hey, if you have an unsalted SHA-1, which is what they were using, I've already pre-processed it. This password goes to this hash, this password goes to this hash. And they do that a billion, a trillion, however many times, and they create a big old lookup table. So they can just look up what the original password was if you have this hash on the other side.
Right. And so we got Dave Randolph hanging out in here too, and he said you can tell how bad it is by the fact they were using MS SQL. And I don't know what MS SQL is, but MS SQL, I don't know.
That is Microsoft SQL.
Okay, I didn't know if he meant Microsoft SQL, but yeah, they were using SQL.
Are they saying that they used SQL as the hashing function? Because that'd be crazy.
I'm not certain. David Randolph, he is big time at Printed Solid. I believe he is actually their CEO. So he's hanging out. And this is one of those cases where data leaks are not uncommon. This is something that happens all the time. Literally, Twitch just had a big one, a week ago? Right?
They lost their entire source control. They got forcibly open sourced.
Yeah, and then what they did is they said, "Oh shit, right? We screwed up. We need to fix this." So they reset everybody's stream keys. Right? That is instantly what Twitch did. That way nobody could take over, right? And take over those streams. Makerbot said, it was really only 500 emails. It's not that big of a deal, except it is that big of a deal, Makerbot. Now,
one email is too much.
It's actually about 207,000 unique non-Makerbot emails. But I am inherently, this is not my field, right? Data security is not my thing. You know how we do data security? We air gap computers, okay? That requires physical security, and we got plenty of that. Data security, when you're dealing with S3 servers that are not heavily encrypted like this, and they still haven't fixed the problem. The problem still exists. And they're trying to say that, oh, yeah, you know, it's only 500. And then they said this is a different leak, except it's not. As far as we can tell, this is the 500 emails that they're talking about is the exact same leak. Because if you don't look very far into this, you see like 507 emails that are non-Makerbot that became public. Except when you start looking deeper into it, you will find well over 200,000 emails. And someone might say, well, that's, you know, there must be a lot of users. I want to point out that the city of Orlando, Florida, okay, the city of Orlando, as of 2019, had 280,000 citizens in it. That means almost the entirety of Orlando was just doxxed. Like that. And for some reason, Makerbot does not appear that this is a problem. Now, this was all done over Amazon S3. Do you believe that S3 is a weakness in this, or is it something involving what they did to keep people out?
S3 is not the weakness. However, it could have been misconfigured. It's very complicated. The thing about S3 is it is as customizable as you want it to be. So if some configuration was changed or something along those lines, then possibly that it could have been related to S3. But if we're saying that AWS is the vulnerability, then the internet is vulnerable essentially at that point. But I would say it's probably much more likely due to poor configurations or maybe a vulnerability in the code. SQL injection is, I know, extremely popular way to access things you're not supposed to. And it's really easy to accidentally get that wrong. It's also very easy to get it correct, but you only need to be wrong once.
That's true. And I love the podcast Darknet Diary. So if this kind of pen testing stuff really kind of gets you moving, go listen to Darknet Diaries. And they always have this ad read. It's like, you have to get lucky every single time. The attackers only have to get lucky once. And that's why data security is such a big damn problem, is that they only have to get lucky once. And
well, one correction to that is there is a flip side, which is that if you have layered security, you only have to stop them at one point. If they can get past 4 of the 5 things that you have protecting yourself, and that 5th one stops them cold, then awesome, they're stopped.
Right.
But at the same time, they only need to figure out a single vulnerability to each layer that you have protecting yourself.
Now, I was talking with an individual who shall not be named, who actually may or may not have had the entire data dump. And I asked him a question. I want to ask you the same question. Do you believe that this data leak was a result of somebody being malicious, or was this someone screwing around that found a vulnerability?
What's the difference? By malicious, do you mean that they're trying to hurt people, or did they just happen upon this because they were looking? Or I guess what my question is are you asking me, was this targeted?
Yeah. So my thought here initially was that this was targeted. But talking to this other individual, they said they're not certain. I mean, looking at this, do you believe this was like a targeted attack?
My best guess would be is that this was somebody doing a shotgun approach. They wanted information. They tried every website that they could think of, and they went for the low-hanging fruit.
And they got lucky. Yeah, and for those wondering, it is 36 gigabytes worth of, like, text files, effectively, that you have to put into your own SQL server to run through it. And the individual that I was talking to said, this is how easy it is. And the amount of face palming that I had on this discovery call was, excessive, because I'm over here like, I am not very smart when it comes to this type of technology at all, right? Data security is not my deal. We have data security people for that problem. But even I looked at this and said, no, this is too easy. This is easy enough that if you had even a modicum of back-end access, you could do whatever you wanted. We had someone saying that Thingiverse is based off of Zach Hokin's original PHP code. That was what BotQ was based off of, which is why I know that. So Justin was saying that. Because Dave was asking if it was MySQL, and it's not.
Well, MySQL could have been the database, while PHP was the code source built on top of it. Most websites are three parts: front end, which is what you see,
right?
Back end, which is the programming language that does a lot of the processing, and then some type of database for storage. Obviously, it can get way more complex, but that's the basic formula.
Bob says we should call the individual George. It would probably shorten up my my talking about them. The individual's real name is not George, so George works for me. And I love Dave Randolph, 36 gigs for just 500 emails. And this is totally true.
Very long emails.
But I think the important thing here to recognize is the data breach is probably not that big of a deal. It's how they handled it that is the problem, right? It is never like that full issue. The full issue being the data breach. It is how the company handles it. So when Twitch had their data breach, they went into, oh shit, let's stop it now problem, right? Thingiverse said, and we had Troy Hunt try to reach out to them 2 days after the leak went public. Waited 6 days trying to contact them. Nobody got back to him. So he went public. Troy Hunt is the guy that runs haveibeenpwned.com. And by the way, if you have not checked, go to haveibeenpwned.com. You can go ahead and sign up and verify if your email was in this leak or any other leaks, because leaks are a big deal. Troy has been running this website for years. It is really one of, the right ways to handle this. And I've always laughed. I said, well, what if his website gets taken? But, he's kind of the master of data security, so I can't imagine that would be an issue. Apparently, Microsoft SQL and MySQL are not the same, but they're close enough because Microsoft hates you.
Microsoft is notorious for seeing somebody else make a really awesome product and then make their own version of it. One of my favorite programming languages, C#, has a fun story about Java.
If you want to go for it.
Oh, I'd love to. So Java, big programming language, one of the most popular ones for a very long time.
You can get it in medium roast, dark roast, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so Oracle, who created Java, threw out this huge ad campaign. I want to say the most expensive ad campaign for a programming language ever created, which made it an astoundingly popular programming language. Microsoft was like, Java's awesome. We would love to license it from you and use it for programming stuff. And for reasons that I don't know, Oracle said no. So Microsoft decided that it was in their best interest to make their own Java, but better. And so C# was born. It was literally created out of spite as a Java replacement. And I personally find it to be a very great programming language.
Chris DOT45 says Java can burn in a dumpster. And he also said, I assume the 36 gigabytes includes the STL files as blob data. No, it does not. The STL files and all the data from Thingiverse, based on what this dump tells us as of 2020, is roughly 50 terabytes worth of information. And yeah, it's still totally accessible. And Mardini, hey Mardini, he's calling in from Hawaii, which is pretty cool. Mardini is a really, really awesome guy. He said, if you use Google Chrome and save passwords there, Google will tell you if any emails or passwords you have saved have been in a hack. I did not know that. Is that true? I didn't know that was a thing. I know I get yelled at when I use certain passwords. Google's like, hey, idiot, you've used that enough times. Let's go with a new password. And actually, my personal email was in this data dump. I got emails from my personal email, the company Gmail, and my company email, like my direct company email, which does not have a Thingiverse account. However, I put it in a comment. I said, hey, email me at, my company email. I put it in a comment. And that is how it found its way into the data breach. So it is really, really interesting for this. Christy OT 45 says 36 gigs is actually huge for a website database. It is. But Chris, this includes things like API tokens. It includes all of the data from user account information, all the comments you've made, all the DMs you've sent, and all that back and forth data. It adds up very quickly, right? Because text files are not inherently large, but databases like this can get huge very, very, very fast, right?
Common behavior that companies like to do is log everything and figure out how they'll use it later.
Right.
Which is also a big problem when it comes to data security, because if you're logging all of this information, then that means that you are a more prime target the more information that you hold. So that's always something that a company should think about is, do we actually need to store this information? Also, I feel like this might be an excellent time to talk about password managers and how that could be. It's obviously not a solution to the problem, but it's a really great way to protect yourself when something like this happens.
Because remember, no glove, no passwords.
I'm just going to jump right past that one. So password managers, they are something that you can get. I know that Chrome has one built in, Firefox has one built in. There's a lot of options that you can have. There's places like 1Password and a number of other companies that create password managers. Shoot, you could even try to create your own if you feel so inclined. But what a password manager does is it has some means to create a custom, unique, strong password for you and have a way to associate that with a website so that you don't have to remember Q964 exclamation point minus less than. But
shit, gotta go change my password.
I know. The password manager will remember it for you. And the great thing is that you have a different password for each website. So if one website gets violated, then it doesn't mean that they can access your other accounts, which is a huge way that people get hacked. Thingiverse gets hacked. They now have your password and your email for everything. They're logging into your Netflix, your bank account.
Oh, I don't want them messing with my Netflix watch list, all right? I have not finished the brand new season of The Blacklist yet, and someone better not screw that up for me.
Oh, they will.
Oh, they will. Something, a question here, and this comes from, well, it's not a question, but it comes from Bob Carnes. My Kaspersky antivirus has one that comes with it. Is it recommended? One, is it even recommended to run extra antivirus programs like Kaspersky? I've always used Malwarebytes personally, but in this computer upgrade, which, hi, by the way, I'm no longer running on a computer that could be comparable to Thingiverse's server speed. Robert, I know you're kind of uninitiated there. Thingiverse's server is effectively a potato. It runs so slow. So it's hilarious to me that there was so much data in this dump. I said, well, that's why it's running so damn slow. It's so freaking large. Oh. Apparently this is a Spaceballs reference, I'm told. Damn it, is it a Spaceballs reference? I know the 1, 2, 3, 4, the password for my suitcase. That's a Spaceballs reference, but I didn't realize that maybe the Kaspersky thing was a Spaceballs reference. Shit.
Kaspersky is a security firm. They do create antivirus, and it does come with a password manager. So, is it better just to use the one in Google, or should you be looking at like a Bitwarden or a LastPass or something like that, or does it not matter? Well, firstly, use one. Using whatever one is better than not using any. And then following that, there are things that you can consider. Firstly, how much do you trust the company? How
Yeah.
secure do you believe that the company is? A large number of password managers will back your passwords up on their servers. And if that happens, do you believe that their security is enough to protect all of your passwords that are backed up on their servers? It wouldn't be the first time that a password manager got hacked, meaning that all of the passwords that they were protecting now became exposed. But also, you're talking about security experts or what you hope to be security experts.
Right.
And then I am no doubt that there are password managers out there that don't back your passwords up, or backing your passwords up is optional and you can turn it off.
So I've always used Google, like in Google's Chrome, for me personally, and then for the company we have a LastPass account because then I can just control if people get the passwords. And let's say we have to let a staff member go or a contractor go, I quickly change the credentials, I kill their account, and it can auto update all the passwords for us. That way, if they saved all those passwords into their Chrome, password management's a real bitch for a company. It really sucks for us as a company because if anybody gets malicious, it is so much work. We have so many accounts. And I've always said there's all of you out there that are thinking of a business right now that are smarter than me when it comes to coding, I would love a service where you could validate that you are legit, that you know what you're doing. And then I say, all right, I had to let go of a staff member. They're being a pain in the ass. Nuke all of our passwords, put new passwords in place, and then update our password manager. Because, we've got well over 50 different things that we utilize, and that is a lot of somebody's time. And that somebody generally has to be me because I'm the one that carries the two-factor authentication. Can we talk about 2FA real quick as well?
Yeah, so two-factor authentication is amazing and everyone should use it. Essentially, what it does is security can be broken down into a number of things. It can be a thing that you know, a thing that you have, a thing that you are. And so examples of that, a thing that you know could be a password. A thing that you have could be a cell phone. And a thing that you are could be biometrics like fingerprint. And so all of those can be used as forms of security. And so two-factor authentication makes it so that a service is connected to an email, a phone number, an authentication app on your phone. And what it does is it adds an additional layer. You remember when I was talking earlier about how you can have 5 layers of protection, and if the 5th layer stops them, then they're not in your system?
But wait a minute, they tell me you should only wear one at a time.
Two-factor authentication.
I'm going to keep making condom jokes here. I'm just letting you know this.
Two-factor authentication is an additional layer of protection. So you have your password, and then when you log in, it'll go, okay, validate with their two-factor authentication, which can be you receiving an email that has information that you have to put in, or a link that you have to click, or in most cases, apps, they have a number associated with your account that refreshes every 30 seconds. And so what you do is you look up what your number is, you tell it what your number is, and now you're authenticated.
And that's what we do. So inside of the company, we've got all of our passwords, but they are all tagged to a phone. It is not my phone. It is a phone that has all the 2FA stuff on it. I'm the only one that has access to that phone.
So if you want to go really, really in depth on cybersecurity, it's very good that that is not your phone, because the thing about two-factor authentication is if anybody were to steal that phone from you, either physically or remotely, they now have your two-factor authentication.
Bingo.
And so something that's becoming more and more popular is an attack that is SIM swapping, where they will call up your phone company, go, I am Grant, I have a new phone, please make my new phone work. And then suddenly your phone stops working, their phone is now your phone, and they now have access to your two-factor authentication.
I mean, look, and I said this before, if a hacker wants to take my phone, can they at least help me answer some emails here? You know, if you're going to be malicious, can you at least help me get this boat on the right path here, please? You know, if you're going to hack my computer, can you clean up some of the files for me? You know, let's remove some unused programs. The things I've been putting off for too long. My desktop's really dirty. Can we clean that up a little bit? You know, I'm not saying, you know, remove all the files, but, you know, help a brother out if you're gonna, you know, if you're gonna hold me hostage for a tenth of a Bitcoin or whatever it is in these ransomware attacks, you might as well help me out while you're. I'm joking. Please don't do that. Don't be. Remember, kids, there are 2 rules in life, and we're gonna operate on rule number 1, which is don't be a dick. It's real simple. Chris says don't use SMS for 2-factor. Use an authenticator app. I agree. I don't like using SMS, and I especially don't like using email, because if your email and the password to your email has been out in a data dump and you don't know that, somebody can try to log in, get that 2FA, and it goes right to your email that they already have access to. So it's not just having multi-layers of protection, it's understanding the implications of those layers of protection, right?
Absolutely. If you use something wrong, it's not going to work as well. I feel like it comes down to being that simple. And while I agree, don't use SMS, don't use email as your 2-factor authentication, just like with a password manager, it's better to have not so good 2-factor authentication as opposed to no 2-factor authentication.
And that's part of the problem here. The part of the problem is that there isn't 2-factor authentication on Thingiverse, and here's where things start to get really weird. As of last night, if you log into Thingiverse on your phone, so log into your account on your phone, you can't see anything. Now, people are pushing this to, oh, it's part of the data dump and all the bull. I'm like, no, it's just Thingiverse being Thingiverse. The fact that this website has become a meme in this industry for just operating poorly is astounding to me. And when we have the guy, Troy Hunt, the guy, adding Makerbot on Twitter saying, I need to talk to somebody in your data security team now. He gets ignored for multiple days. Okay, this dump went live on the 8th. He reached out to them on like the 10th or the 11th and went public, is it yesterday or the day before? You know, he waited more than an adequate amount of time, and then 12 hours after he goes public with it, Makerbot's finally like, it's really not a big deal, you're fine, it's only 500 emails. And like, I have to be nice because my marketing team will murder me if I don't. I really want to say, okay, then why don't you publicly post your emails? Why don't you publicly post yours? Because if it's not that big of a deal, then why don't you do it? They have done nothing to fix the problem. The problem still exists. We can still prove the problem exists. It's like Makerbot doesn't care. And I want to remind those people out there. Makerbot is not its own company. It's owned by Stratasys, one of the powerhouses in this industry. They were one of the big 5 to first go public. And this data dump did not hurt their stock price. Normally, a data leak like this would be detrimental to a company. Their stock went up that day. I don't know why, but it did.
So if I could play devil's advocate for a second. Firstly, I agree. They absolutely should have been much more clear on this. But to play devil's advocate, there is a logical reasoning behind why you wouldn't immediately say, we have a problem. And that is that the second you say, we have a problem, other people are going to be looking for it. And there is merit behind wanting to close the hole that's sinking the ship before you tell the world that it's happening and that more problems can come in. Now, should they have dropped everything and started trying to fix the problem? Yes. Should they have had a plan together for how they were going to let every single person that was affected know what happened and what they're doing to fix it? Absolutely. Should they have taken advice and talked to security experts who were trying to get in contact with them? Without a question. But just to play devil's advocate, there is a reason that they could very realistically come up with to explain why they didn't just the day it happened be like, guys, guess what?
We fucked up. Yeah, it's like they're admitting to it, but they're playing it down, and I I think that's what's upsetting to me. It's like, look, you got caught. Stop playing the Shaggy card, okay? It wasn't me doesn't work here. It was you. You were caught in the shower. It's time to own up to it, and it's time to say, we screwed up, we're going to fix it. But unfortunately, even today, right, there have been enough people that I may or may not know, that may or may not have downloaded this, that may or may not have shown it to me, that it is 1, still active, 2, still a problem, and 3, way freaking worse. There is 2.5 million entries into this database, which I guess is not egregiously large, apparently.
Is that users?
2 million users. Well, it's 2 million usernames. Some passwords are very secure. Others are not. There's the SHA-1 hashing for the problem ones. And there is 620,000 or more running that problem, the SHA-1 hashing.
So a follow-up, is there any information out there for whether the now secure passwords still has the insecure password stored? Because if that is the case, then that opens up a whole nother round of fun vulnerabilities as well. I don't know how many people followed the Ashley Madison data dump, but that's actually how they were able to crack those passwords, was by having access to good and bad encryption at the same time.
Right. Okay, I just got the real number from George. 620,041 using SHA-1 and a little over 2 million users.
Okay.
And they overwrite.
Okay, well that's good at least.
Yeah. Quilon1 says, I'd say SHA-1 itself isn't the problem. It's the unsalted and unpeppered SHA-1 that's the problem. I love the fact that it's called salt and peppered. So yeah. I'm going to have to get salt and pepper. So for those that don't realize this, we are also going to be doing a full channel video about this on Monday where I go into a little bit more detail. Spoiler alert, I'm not going to show it to you. Stop it. I'm not going to show it to you. But I'm going to go into a little bit more detail of how and why this occurred. And I've been working on props for it. The George said we should take a computer and put it into a microwave and blow it up as part of the data breach issue. Robert, you've been to my home. You know how many random bullshit computers I have laying around here. But what I do have now, ladies and gentlemen, and I want to give a big shout out to our patrons because this is my old computer. I can hold my old computer. This is the computer that I have been running since 2014, and it is no longer in my computer case, so thank you to our patrons. And I guess that brings me into a nice segue to our sponsor, 3D Musketeers. Yeah, we still continue to sponsor our own stuff. Somebody sue me. Or why don't you support us over at patreon.com/3D Musketeers so that, now we're going to start streaming more often. Because, oh my god, CPU bottleneck. For the computer geeks out there, I went from a 4770K that was previously overclocked but was crazy unstable. So it was running a bone stock 4770K with a massive Noctua NHD 14 over to a Intel 10400, brand new motherboard, Wi-Fi 6, 2.5 gig Ethernet, 20 gigabit per second USB plug. God, that's nice for transferring data. And that's all thanks to our patrons, so I wanted to give a huge shout out to them because without them, that computer upgrade would probably not have happened for quite some time. But yeah, my computer was a potato. We play games a lot on our Patreon. Splitgate has been the big one that we've been playing. Splitgate was pulling 90 to 100% of my CPU utilization with everything on low, capped at 60 FPS. I played Splitgate last night on a Zoom call at the same time, 200 FPS, everything cranked to epic, and the CPU load was only at 40%. CPU bottlenecks are fun. So yeah, thank you to everyone there. I could not have done most of this without you, so I do appreciate it. God, this thing is really dusty. I'm going to set this down now. The same computer since 2014. It still runs, though. You know, can't hate that. All right, you're down.
I'd actually love to go back to the unsalted, unpeppered thing that was brought up.
Can you explain what that means? Because I'm clear, this is clearly not my industry. I don't understand what unsalted and unpeppered means, because when I think of unsalted and unpeppered, apparently I'm going to pull it rather than push it.
So unsalted and unpeppered, those are two techniques that you can use to make a password storage more secure. So I'll go with salting first. And what salting does is, earlier I talked about like the rainbow lookup tables where somebody could pre-compute a whole bunch of passwords so that you could look up what the original was. What salting does is it makes that harder to do, because it essentially takes your password, adds the salt to it, and then hashes it, which means that they would have to know what the salt was to be able to pull your password out of the hash. It adds security.
So is it Salt Bay, or is it, you know, where you trick someone by unscrewing the top on the salt and they dump it onto their food?
I would say it's more like the second one.
Okay. All right. So we're by dumping all that extra stuff into it, we're effectively additionally encrypting it, right?
Yeah, you're making it harder to know what the original password was, because now there's more junk in there for you to figure out.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like maybe your password was password. And so if they go, if it's unsalted and they go, all right, so this hash is password. Now they have your password. But if they add the salt, and now they encrypted password salt, they would have to first find the hash, know that it becomes password salt, and then they have to know what part of it is the password and what part of it is the salt to then get your password out of it. So it adds more steps of difficulty.
Okay, so apparently with salting, you prevent the use of rainbow tables. Peppering is like salt plus plus, because it's a secret key not in the database. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's different. So what peppering does is you take your encrypted password, salted or hopefully salted. And also another thing is all passwords should have a different salt. That it should be unique to each password.
So Himalayan salt, Dead Sea salt, kosher salt?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so what peppering does is you have your password that has been encrypted. And now you're like, I want to add more security, because even salted passwords have vulnerabilities, especially depending on the type of algorithm. And SHA-1 is known for having particular vulnerabilities that we can go into later. And so what peppering does is you take this already hashed password and then you encrypt it. And the difference between a hash and an encryption is a hash is one way. You can't undo it. It's like frying an egg. You can't unfry that egg and get it back to being raw. While encryption is like a lock on a door. You can lock it and you can unlock it. You can undo it and get back the original information. So to pepper your salted password, you encrypt it using a secret encryption key that is not stored in the database. It's stored in like a password vault or some other very secure location. And then that's used to essentially add another layer of protection that helps to make it more difficult to access what the original password was.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that I didn't realize that there was so much in this, right? I know that, like, storing plain text passwords is stupid, right? Don't put your passwords into a Google Drive or an Excel sheet, right? But I didn't realize there was so much to it. And apparently peppering is common key per entire database, meaning if you get the peppering, you can just make a rainbow table for the entire database, whereas salting is per password, so you'd have to make a rainbow table per user. But I guess the trick is, if you add them both together, Right.
Yes,
You
if
get a meal
either
that tastes a
one
lot better.
stumps them, then they're stumped. Now,
Right.
back to what he was talking about, the salting being a per password thing where the salt is unique. That's great because, like he said, you have to create a rainbow table per unique salt. However, SHA-1 is known for having very, very substantial vulnerabilities that can still even be exploited on a salted password. And the two of them mainly are the first one being a SHA hash, super fast, super duper duper fast. So that means if you take your brand new computer that you just put together and you tell it, crank out every single thing that you can figure out under the sun, because you know what the salt is. The salt is stored with the password because it needs to be stored with it so that they know which one to use. And so you can start cranking out rainbow tables for each of these salts. And because SHA-1 is so fast, you can crank out huge rainbow tables.
Okay.
And then the other one being that SHA-1 is known to have pretty severe collision problems. That's where you take two different passwords and they hash to the same end result. And that can cause a lot of issues with the security of your passwords.
Now, why is SHA-1 known for having this? Is it just because the algorithm tends to repeat? Because I'm over here sitting like, why couldn't I salt it, pepper it, salt it over and over and over again to just add extra layers of security? Or is that not a thing?
So, firstly, why is SHA-1 have these problems? The easiest answer is it's really old. It was cracked back in 2004. That's when the first paper came out explaining vulnerabilities that existed in the fundamental algorithm.
Why do people still use... Thingiverse has not been around that long. Why do they use... Why would they
because
do...
if you don't know better, then you don't know better. Or if you don't care. Or possibly you have a reason why maybe you want to use this. Maybe you thought the salting and the peppering was enough. My opinion is if you know something's broken, don't use it, but...
So
that's not to say there might not have been reasons.
What you're saying is the data security specialist for Thingiverse should be filing for unemployment here in the next couple of days.
Or at the very least have some really, really good reasons to explain what happened.
Speaking of, Robert, you are available for work, are you not?
I am available for work.
Yeah. So if any of you want to hire this awesome guy who I will tell you is a phenomenal dancer, not that that should be any reason that you hire somebody.
Everyone knows you can judge the skill of a software developer by how well they can dance.
You know, by knowing all the software developers that I do because of dance, that's really not a bad way to determine this. Yeah, I mean, for reference, if anyone's looking for software development, you can email us, youtube@3dmusketeers.com, and I'll pass it over to Robert. He is really a great guy. Loves Factorio, too, you know, if that's your thing. So, clearly a logistics guy, clearly. Can I put that on your resume? I speed ran Factorio by doing it the real way. That means I know logistics.
I honestly think that you should be able to put, like, I understand circuits and trains inside a Factorio on a resume.
Dave Randolph is asking, can you dance while you compile?
While compiling, yeah, I don't have to be there. I click a button and walk away.
Well, Dave, there's your answer. I mean, Dave, if you're looking for software dev, hit me up. I'll happy to get you in contact with Robert. Kelly is saying, what an awkward dance-based technical interview that would be.
You know, I am a little rusty right now.
We're all a little rusty. It's been a minute.
It's been a hot second.
And for me, it's because I've been injured. You can practice at home. I can't.
What, are you saying that I should go out there and dance with my girlfriend who's in the other room, who also loves dancing, who I also met at a dance?
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Oh, okay.
Can John Maricol is asking, can you at least do the robot?
No, if it's not jazz, why would I even dance it?
This is fair. But I can tell you that Robert is at least 22.5% robot.
Yeah, that's true.
At least, yeah. If your friends don't dance, if they don't code, then they're no friends of mine. Can we please redo the safety dance and call it the coding dance? C C C C O O O O D D D D I. It would work. It's the same amount of letters. We could redo the song and call it the coding dance. Don't forget to leave a like on the stream. Good Lord have mercy. This is off the rails. This is what I love about you, Robert. It is a lot of fun. And Bob says that is to say, blame Stratasys, for the current BS, not the original designer. I have to agree. Hino, could be Hano. I always get their name wrong. Says, howdy everybody, and Grant, don't even bother twisting your tongue with my name. The name is tough for me to pronounce. But yeah, I have to agree here, right? Stratasys bought Makerbot in 2011, 2012. And Thingiverse came along with that acquisition. Why the hell has Stratasys, one, completely neglected this? This is Stratasys' proverbial redheaded stepchild. And it's unfortunate because it could be one hell of an asset, don't you agree? I mean, this is one of the largest repositories on the internet for 3D models, and yet Stratasys just doesn't care about it. Recently, and Robert, I don't think we told you about this one. Recently, they went in and changed everybody's affiliate links to their own.
Oh.
So if you had a file that needed some sort of hardware or software and you could do an Amazon affiliate link for it, right? You put the Amazon affiliate link because, damn it, you gotta make money somehow when you're doing things in open source. Makerbot, Stratasys, whatever, went through and changed them all. Now, this is not just like, oh yeah, we're going to pay an intern to go through. There is 36 gigabytes worth of data entries. Imagine how many freaking files. Well, there's 50 terabytes worth of files as of 2020 and everything. So the entire website encompasses 50 terabytes worth of information. Somebody was tasked with writing a script that integrated the Amazon API to change all of the affiliate links. And Robert, it gets even worse. They didn't change the text of the affiliate link, so it still looked like it was my affiliate link. But when you clicked it, it was not my affiliate link anymore. Isn't that some shady shit?
That's pretty horrible. I actually wonder how easy it would be to even write that script. I'm assuming it just has a parameter for who the affiliate is. Unfortunately, I bet it was probably really easy for them to do that.
Apparently, one SQL update script to rule them all.
Yeah.
Thingiverse is the only neglected 3D printing project. Worse than Simplify 3D. Dave Randolph with the... Oh, man, that's a chokehold right there. Could Slick 3R be in there, too? Robert, I know you're not big in this industry, but Simplify 3D is one of the only paid slicers out there, and it hasn't had an update, like a significant update, in like 3.5 years.
Okay.
And yet they're still charging you for it. It is so far behind everybody else. And
I mean, if people are willing to pay, I'm willing to take the money.
And I think that's what they said too, but they're not willing to support it. Thankfully, they give out great refunds, because I don't update my copy of Simplify. I don't use it anymore. But yeah, they are... version... It got so bad where people were asking about version 5 because they teased it back in 2020 and it still hasn't released. You would think if there's one thing that you can do a lot of during a lockdown is programming. That's like one of the few jobs that lends itself to being incredibly friendly for work from home. But
you would think that, and it is, but as somebody who has done that, I gotta tell you, just not leaving your house, doesn't matter what you're working on. You run out of steam.
It's true. As someone that leaves their house maybe once a week, there will be multiple days where I don't see the sun. The sun, like you can see the blinds behind me. This is all, lighting that I've built, and I leave this on all day. I was up until 4 a.m., and then I was up again at about 8:30. I was probably up a little bit earlier.
You should sleep more.
I should, but I can't. My back keeps me awake. And then the lack of sleep screws with my eye, and people ask if I've been crying in videos. It's a thing. I don't. I have an eye problem that is caused from excessive stress and lack of sleep. So, yeah. is what it is.
Grant stressed.
Justin
What?
says Grant's a vampire, calling it now. As someone that has been watching What You Do in the Shadows on Hulu, by the way, highly recommend
Love
that
that
show.
show.
Yeah. Yep, sure. I could be one of them. Not a vampire, unfortunately. Because that would be a really cool YouTube channel. Just going to put that one out there. Crying over that data leak, Justin says. No, I'm not. I'm upset at the way that it's been handled. And we covered this earlier, that data leaks are common, right? This is not an uncommon thing. It is not about the problem. It is about how you are dealing with it, right? Their first response should have been, we are instantly resetting everybody's passwords. We will work with Have You Been Pwned to alert every single maker or every single Thingiverse user and send them all emails to let them know that their emails and passwords have been compromised, and force them to change their password when they log back in. But what has been funny to me, Robert, is watching Joseph Prusa on Twitter. Joe Prusa announced some really awesome things. One, he reminded everybody that Prusa, for a while now, prusaprinters.org, that is their file repository. No, you don't need a Prusa printer to use it. It is just called prusaprinters.org, all right? Branding and such. He reminded everybody that, hey, you do know that you can connect your Thingiverse account to Prusa printers and just transfer all your data and then delete it from Thingiverse, right? You do know you can do that, right? And then on top of it, he made public that they are going to be going through a rebrand. So they are going to be changing the name, which is pretty cool. That way the name is more open to everybody else and not just, people. Because I've had people say, well, I've never tried Prusa printers because I don't have a Prusa printer. I'm like, you don't need that. Now, I'm curious, though, because this is just negligence, is it not? Like, a problem like this is negligence. Stratasys never looked at this during their acquisition. Why was this not caught, other than negligence?
Well, I guess it's how you call negligence. Should they have checked? Yes. Could they say they had a reason to believe that it was secure when they bought it? Probably. It all comes down to people and companies are only going to do as much as they feel that they have to. And unfortunately, computers are new, and our government is predominantly made up of people very old who don't understand it. So there's not really good regulations around this. Cybersecurity needs to be made a priority, in my opinion. And until it is, these problems are only going to get worse. And we keep seeing it getting worse.
Weren't there politicians that were talking about like F12? Using
Yes.
F12 made you a hacker?
Yeah, having a keyboard. Don't you dare. You need to remove that F12 key. Otherwise, you're breaking the law.
What is so special about the F12 key, by the way?
Oh, so go to a website, hit F12.
Okay.
You'll see this little thing pop up. It's called the developer tools, and it exists so that people can, one, if you're making a website, you can go in and look at stuff, because
oh, I didn't know you could just hit F12. I've always right-clicked and did inspect element.
Oh yeah, exact same thing. The only difference is if you right-click and inspect, it takes you to where it is located in the developer tools.
Oh, well, that's
and
way
so
better.
Horrible levels of cybersecurity, something that happens an embarrassing amount of the time, devs will put the password for the admin login in the HTML in a comment so that it doesn't show up on the screen, but it's there so that they can use it during their testing. And they forget to remove it when they push the website. So there are websites that exist that if you hit F12 and you type Control F so that you can find the password, and you type password, boom, there you go. Admin login credentials waiting there for you.
And this data dump gave you that. So it showed you everything from banned users. You could see levels of users. We could see all the super admins and all of their personal information, like their personal email, where they lived, or whatever address they gave to Thingiverse. And that allowed you to keep going down that rabbit hole. Then you could see, okay, Who did they contact? All right, let's see what that contact was about. Let's see who were they contacting. All right, what was this person's name? Cool. What's their email? Got it. What's their address? Got it. Now you've just doxed two reasonably, I mean, a super admin is not what I would consider an unreasonably insignificant individual. Although in the mass grand scheme of things, most people are significantly insignificant, but, you know. Did we just watch Grant hack a website on this live stream? Cue the FBI SWAT team. Yeah. Yeah, that's... Yes, you know what? Yep. You caught me. Oh, guys, look. Hold on. I hacked Thingiverse's server. I've got it right here. You caught me. I've got the entire Thingiverse server in my hands. I've got Thingiverse's server in... Okay. I'm done with this bit. It is frustrating to see the lack of understanding, and then even further, the lack of acknowledgement. Is it bad that it's not the data breach that pisses me off? I'm like, okay, data breach, yep, shit happens. It's how they dealt with it that really pisses me off. Do I have, like, am I validated in being upset about this? Or am I making a big deal out of something that's really too small here?
You are absolutely validated with how they handled it, but I would say, in my opinion, you're also wrong for not caring that they were hacked. Like, yes, it's happening all the time. Yes, it's becoming commonplace. That does not mean we need to become okay with it.
That's fair. Okay, so this was interesting. So Jimmy Johansson, he's actually one of our patrons, and Jimmy got to see a preview of our website. And Jimmy was using F12 to look at the website the other day to check out, you know, some things that were going on. So if anything, Jimmy's the hacker, and he taught me. Except he doesn't live in the United States. So now it's an Interpol thing, right? Like, what? Give me an international bureau of something. Go kicking Jimmy. Oh, God, don't do that. I like Jimmy. He's cool. And yes, this is... We had a... John Maricall said, that's a hell of a cooler. Yes, it is. This is a Noctua NHD 14. This computer was originally built to be a mobile 3D scanning rig back in 2014. It was fully custom built, and it fit into a computer that was small enough to be a carry-on for an airplane. And because it was a tiny computer, you needed to put the biggest freaking cooler you could to keep, at the time, a very power-hungry 4770K cold. So, yes. Dave Randolph said, I learned it by watching you. Dave, if you learned that by watching me, I don't know, man. I feel like, if anything, I learned more watching you. But, yeah, Dave, by the way, for those of you that don't know, where is it? It's down here. I'm going to give Dave a free shout out. Look at this. For those of you that don't know, Printed Solid has a monthly filament box, and every month you get a custom color. This was last month's custom color. This is mixtape number 9. They're always custom colors, and it's the only time they're ever out. So if you want to get really cool colors of filament, it's like $35 delivered for 2 kilos, made in America. That's a damn good deal as far as I'm concerned. So, yeah, go get it from Printed Solid's website if it's not already sold out. And if it is sold out, go get yourself some of Brad's Orange. Brad is a staff member of ours, and they donate $1 from every single spool to charity, which is dope. Bob says, wait until I see number 10. It's awesome. Bob, how the hell did you get your filament before I do? Bob's on the West Coast. Maybe mine's going to come today. That'll be cool. But yes, I'm sorry, Dave. I have not found a good print to use the orange on just yet. But what's, to me, the most fun that comes with everything, they come with letters. And it explains, and they're always, like, hilarious letters. So these letters inspire me to make bits for the internet, which is fun. Anyways, so, Robert, what is something that, given the circumstances, given everything that's happened, what do you think could be done to, 1, earn back the trust of the community, and then 2, fix these damn problems so they don't happen again? Or is it too late?
Well, I would say that 2 is part of 1.
Okay.
if you keep getting hacked, you're not going to have the trust of the community. I feel like that's pretty simple. So to fix the problems, they need to make cybersecurity a priority. It's surprising to me how few companies have a C-level executive. Now, I don't know if Thingiverse is a large enough company to have C-level executives, but it's surprising to me how few of them have a security-based C-level executive. This is something that's so important. Your company stops existing if you get it wrong enough. And so it should be treated as if it was that important. And so they need to get experts, whether it's hiring them or contracting them or finding a company who's an expert, and get things fixed.
An expert reached out to them and they ignored him.
Yeah, that was probably the first problem, or the second problem. The first problem was making the mistake.
The first problem was selling to to Stratasys, but
But
whatever.
yeah, and they should probably a way that for me at least that they could like help earn back trust is regular security audits from a third party. Have somebody who knows what they're doing, knows what they're looking for, come in every year, every other year. I know that they can be expensive, and actually make sure that things are up to snuff.
What about putting out bug bounties?
But I am a huge fan of bug bounties. For anybody who may not know what a bug bounty
And that's
is,
not going out to the villages and having a good time. That is not what a bug bounty is. And for all the non-Floridians, just look up what the villages is.
so a bug bounty is where companies will have categories of bugs that they are looking for. And they put up bounties for anybody who is able to ethically find those exploits and then reveal them to the company so that they can close the problem, and they will pay money to whoever found them. It's like
You're paying to not have a 0 day, right?
yeah. Essentially, you are paying somebody to find a 0 day before it becomes a 0 day. You are, and what a 0 day is it is a bug that the company has known about for 0 days. So there is no protection in place to prevent it. And so bug bounties are great. They obviously, the size of the company can talk about the size of the bug bounty. I know that for Google, if you find like a Mac Daddy game changing, it ruins their product bug, you're a millionaire now.
Wasn't there a guy that did that where he got a bug bounty from Google, something like 25 grand, and he donated it to charity and Google doubled it?
Oh, I'm sure that's happened.
I feel like that was a story. There's in my head that's a story, and if it's not, then maybe it's because I have too many Google products and they've brainwashed me.
They definitely brainwashed you. Me too.
Yeah, I say we're both pixel owners. You've
Yeah.
got your entire home has got smart home stuff in it.
Not all of it. Only 5.
Only 5. The 2 of my 3 set lights here are voice controlled because they have no switches. And the power strip it's plugged into also is the one that plugs into my computer, so I'm not going to turn that off. But yeah, I feel like, because this technically wasn't even a 0. Well, I guess it was a 0 day, but
No.
the company was made
they were
aware of
likely-
it 4 days or 5 days before they went public about it.
So this was likely not considered a 0 day because it was, I would bet dollars to donuts that it was using known existing exploits. For example, Unsalted SHA-1 is known to be weak. So if they are able to decrypt those weak passwords, that's not a 0 day. That's a known problem.
Now, how weak is this? Is this like Grant attempted to pick up a package weak? Or is this, Grant when he first got injured and could not get out of bed weak?
So for Unsalted SHA-1, you can literally go on the internet, look up a rainbow table, and if the person's password isn't huge, and by huge, I'm talking 20 plus characters, they now know what your password is. It's that simple. The Unsalted SHA-1 is so well known in how it is exploited that the likelihood that your password isn't in the table that is already just lookupable is very, very surprising, especially since having really good passwords is really hard, and not reusing them is even harder. And that's why you need a password manager.
Yeah, for many years I didn't use a password manager and I used effectively the same 5 or 6 passwords. So I'm like, all right, websites give you 3 or 4 attempts. That means I can only have 3 or 4 different passwords because my dumbass is going to forget it. But now I'm at a point where, my passwords are 32 characters long or more each. At
Yeah.
least
So
they
if you
are
want a
now.
password,
My password that I used for Thingiverse was not, and it was already a password that had gotten pwned in another data breach. So I'm like, I just don't give a shit. Um,
so a password needs to be 16 characters long minimum if you want it to be considered secure, because the difficulty of cracking a password using something like SHA-1 Rainbow Table is based on password length a lot more than password complexity. Yes, capital, lowercase, number, special character are all great things, but the way that you know how the complexity of your password is you take the number of possible characters. So if we assume you only use lowercase, that's 26, and then you raise it to the exponent of the number of characters. So every time you add another character, your password becomes substantially more secure.
but you don't want anything that repeats, right? So you don't want to have that repeats, that repeats, that repeats as your password because it's effectively easy to figure out, is it not?
So that comes down to password guessing. And so password guessing, yes, if your password is my name is Grant and I love my cat, that is a relatively long password. There's a lot of letters there,
You
but
gosh
it's
darn
also
right I love
pretty
my cat. And
guessable.
if you want to get some Victoria stickers of your own, go support us on Patreon. Hashtag not sponsored.
So yes, like Chris dot 45 said, passphrases are better. And so the way that you can come up with a really secure password is you string together a series of words. So my
Dave
name is
Randolph.
Grant and I love my cat is a long, secure password unless somebody can guess that, Grant's really egotistical. He loves that when people know his name, and he also loves his cat. So I'm just gonna guess this.
I love Dave Randolph's one. A really good password is just a long run-on sentence that seems to never end, and that is without any spaces. That would be a good password. And technically, he's right. Chris.45 says correct horse battery staple. That's a great password
Ah,
too.
call back to XKCD. I get that reference.
I don't get that reference.
Oh, you need to look at
And of course, he's got capitals. What he doesn't have are special characters. So I always say if you're going to do like 4 or 5 different words, add a little leet speak in there, give me a number or two, and that really amplifies that level of quality. Christoph 45 says check the link. Links don't work in YouTube live streams for very cleared, obvious reasons, because people are malicious. You all aren't, but the general YouTube personality, like a Joel Telling, is going to get some malicious links because that's how these problems first start. Just says the best thing about a password manager is not just that it stores the passwords, but it can generate them using secure algorithms. I totally agree with this. Every single time I go to log up to a website and it's like, hey, would you like to make a password? And Google's like, slow your roll. Why don't we make one for you? And I'm like, that's a good idea. You already know everything about my life anyways, so go for it.
Might as well know my passwords too.
Oh, apparently the XKCD reference is check the link. I don't know XKCD references. So Duff says password length can only work so far on its own. Think of how many people answer their own security questions by doing those Facebook questionnaires.
Yes, and that's where I was talking about how guessable is your password. Are
Right.
you using your name, your spouse's name, your pet's name, your favorite color? You want it to not be a guessable thing. And another issue is that there are password crackers out there that exist that you can put in all of this information and it'll just start guessing passwords. And so it might guess Grant Grant 3D printing, 3D Musketeers Grant, and it'll just
Damn it,
start
I gotta go change my
screaming
passwords
together.
now, Robert.
And it'll put exclamation points at the front and exclamation points at the back because, fun fact, passwords that require special characters, the vast majority of them have an exclamation point at the front or at the end.
It's true.
They don't use the other special characters, they don't put them in other places.
It's
and so
totally true.
The special character restriction is no longer making your password much more secure on an individual basis. And so that's where password length can be very helpful, or using a password manager again. I'm not going to stop saying that people need those, or two-factor authentication, or any of these things. There's so many small things that a person can do to protect themselves. And luckily, a lot of small things adds up to a lot of protection.
That's what it's really. Oh, he said. So Jesse printed solid red 1 exclamation point is a bad password ? I'm screwed. Dave Randolph says. The Jesse is, I believe, the name of his dog, and the entire line of filament is called Jesse PLA and now Jesse PETG. So I'm explaining that to Robert mostly because basically everybody else here knows what Jesse is. Duff said, in my previous IT life, had so many times where coworkers had issues telling each other their passwords. This is why I have less hair.
Yeah. The amount of people who are IT ignorant or IT don't care, they know better, but they ignore it anyways, very frustrating.
Now, is that from a... So if they ignore it, is that just because users kind of suck? And
it's because people are lazy.
Yeah.
I'm lazy as well. And you just kind of have to choose what you're willing to be lazy about. And your own personal security probably should not be on that list, because it's astonishing the number of things that can very, very rapidly go very, very wrong when something like this isn't taken seriously.
I remember back when I was getting an interview at a company, and I'm going to talk about some things I don't want to say the company's name, but it took me less than 2 days to determine the schedule of an individual so I could get past them to get to the person that I needed to get to. And when I got past them, I noticed every one of their passwords was written on a sticky note. So
well,
not
now you're
only,
talking more social engineering.
Yeah, not only was it very easy to socially engineer this person, all I had to do was swipe that post note and I had access into whatever I needed because that person happened to be a gatekeeper for a very high level person at this particular company. And at that point, I basically had the keys to the kingdom if I wanted them. And I made it very clear to the owner of that company that, hey, you've got a problem. And from that point on, they always referred to me as the Geek Squad. Which upsets me because no, 1, 2, no, and 3, okay, but kind of a little bit. That one was frustrating because, again, that was like people that don't have good data security were just saying, oh, it'll never happen to us. And then it clearly did, and they saw no problem with it.
Security through obscurity should not be what you're using. Hoping that nobody hacks you because there's so many other people to hack should never be your go-to choice.
Mardini has a good point. He said, as kind of mentioned above, the reset questions need to be secured too. I typically have a fake answer in there, so someone who comes after me, if they find out what my first street I lived on is, no biggie. Part of me says yes, the other part of me says there's not a snowball's chance in hell I'm going to remember what I put in there as fake, so I'd have to have another, so I would have to put it into my password manager under the notes to say, hey, dumbass, this is the answer you actually meant.
And to the problem of if you use the same fake answer for all of your websites, then it only needs to be hacked once.
It's the exact same problem. Exactly.
Yeah. Or if you use a very guessable one, because I know somebody who would use the name of the website as their security answers, thinking that they were really clever, because nobody would guess that they used to live at google.com. But then it becomes very clear what the pattern is so that you can guess what it would be at another website.
Dave Randolph says your security questions should never answer your real answers. And Chris.45 says I prefer sites that allow me to write my own questions. I agree with both of those. Now, Robert, I was in the data leak. What should I do to protect myself? Right now, what should I do?
Firstly, change your password on the website, though my understanding is that that might not do you any good.
I replaced my whole computer literally yesterday. What else can I do? That's unrelated.
You can change your password everywhere else that has that password. You can get yourself a password manager. Another thing that you can do, and that I highly recommend, two-factor authentication, especially on the things that matter. Your email is one of the most sought after things for a hacker to access, because if they have your email, they have your life. Where does the password reset go? It goes to your email. So your email should be honestly the most secure piece of software that you have access to in existence. You should double check your bank accounts, make sure nothing funny is happening there.
Unless money's being transferred in, then just ignore that.
Well, yeah, I'd take it.
Yeah.
And another issue is that a lot of people, whenever they do a hack like this, they like to sit on the information for a while. And right. So it's really hard to be vigilant in a year and a half when they decide to use all the information, knowing half of it's going to be bad, but knowing that that other half, everybody forgot about the hack.
Well, this is what happened here. This hack happened basically a year ago, and it was only made public on the 8th. It's now the 16th. And for those that are listening audio only, yes, we've said this many times. If you listen audio only, you get it a week late. But yeah, I don't understand how this was effectively allowed to happen. And like, okay, I've got a password manager. Okay, this password is secure. But now my personal email, like my legitimate personal email, is out there now. It's not an email that anybody gets, right? My personal Gmail account is not something that people get. Now it is public. So if you have that data dump, you can find my personal Gmail. Which would be funny. If you have the data dump and you find my personal Gmail, you should email me. That'd be kind of cool. And if you can do it before this evening, I will include you in the video that we are filming tonight, because there's going to be a main channel video on Monday about this. It'd be kind of cool to see how many people emailed me. I won't tell your name, but say, I've gotten multiple emails because I told people, if you have my personal email, send me an email. Because you know what? I don't care. It's not really that difficult of an email to figure out, so I'm not worried about it. But that could be concerning for a big personality, right? Like if one of the big YouTubers in our industry had their email publicly leaked like that, right? That's massively detrimental, is it not?
Yeah, that's doxing essentially.
Is that illegal?
I think so. I'm going to go with yes, because regardless of if it is, I want it to be. But I guess for protecting yourself, we can go in 3 tiers. We can go what a normal person's going to do, what somebody a little paranoid is going to do, and tinfoil hat, I'm being targeted. Because there's different tiers of how far you can go. So a normal person, assume that you're part of it. Change your passwords, update your information, just keep an eye out, see if anything's looking funny. And if it is, check into it. Get two-factor authentication for anything that you consider important, and just try to be vigilant.
So back up the entire photo library of Victoria with a two-factor authenticated password account?
Yeah. Okay. Save them cat photos. Whatever's important to you. Make sure it has a good password. Make sure you use two-factor authentication if that's an option. And just be careful. So the next step up, if that's not quite good enough for you, and get a password manager. Everybody needs a password manager. So the next step up,
you can recommend, by the way?
Like I said, Google has one, Firefox has one. Firefox is what I'm currently using until I'm finished making my own.
That's right. You are working on your own, are you not?
Yeah. So if you want to get a little nerdy, I can go into that in a little detail because it's fun.
I feel like the people in the comments right now would appreciate getting a little bit nerdy. I will probably get lost in the first 30 seconds, but that's okay. Talk
No, you're
nerdy
fine.
to me.
I can explain this. So the thought is, I want good passwords. You can create your own good passwords using a really secure random number generator and giving it a number of things that it can pick from. And I want it to be able to do that. And so essentially what I'm doing is I'm using a random number generator to generate random passwords of a particular length. And I'm doing this in a manner because I didn't want, as a personal challenge, my password to be stored inside of my password manager. So what I did is instead I have a repeatable algorithm that creates randomized passwords out of the location that you're trying to put them into and a secret text that you give it. And so it just creates you a nice little fake password, and it can create the exact same password every single time over and over again so that you don't have to reset your password over and over again. And so it just seemed like a really a fun problem, and it solves the issue of my password being stored and backed up somewhere that's vulnerable.
By the way, I've already gotten one email to my personal email account.
Excellent. So I see in the chat that a list of some good password managers. I know 1Password's good, Dashline, LastPass, and Bitwarden. I've heard of all 4 of those, and I've only heard good things. So I'm sure those are excellent options. So for the level 2, if you want to be a little bit more secure, you can do something such as creating fake email addresses unique to each website that you're logging into, so that if your email gets revealed in the hack, it's not your email, it's your Thingiverse email.
How do you feel about like 10-minute mail and using those systems? Because the issue there, of course, is if you forget the password, you're screwed. You can't get it anymore.
Yeah, so you could do that, or you could just create a large series of fake emails. And I don't know if anybody's thinking, aha, I have the idea. Google has that whole plus thing, so it'll be my email plus Thingiverse. The issue is other people know that exists, so they'll just take the plus Thingiverse off, and now they know your email.
That is, so they had webdev plus your username at makerbot.com. That's what basically everybody's email was when you first looked for it. But then if you went into the interactions, that's where their real emails were shown off. And so if you look at just simply the main area of usernames, there are 507 people that do not have that email the way that it is. It's when you go a little bit deeper that you get into the 200,000+ people that are that way.
Yeah.
And apparently 10-minute mail is blocked by Thingiverse, so you can't sign up with that. Wait a minute. So these dickbags say, "Oh, we don't want you to use 10-minute mail. Screw you. We're going to make you use your real email so that when we have a data breach, you actually lose something important to you."
Well, how else do they sell your email to advertisers, silly?
That is funny because they just started putting ads on their website.
There's a reason that things, yeah.
Dave Randolph was going to be, he's getting his prints off of Thingiverse, putting them into Prusa printers, and Thangs is owned by Fizna. Now, I'm not here to talk poorly about them, but I want you to look into what Fizna does and what they are as a company and decide if you want to give them your information. They are like like deep learning AI company, and understand how, if they are making money.
If you're not paying for it, you are what's for sale.
Exactly. And apparently Thingiverse has blocked 2,395 individual domains from signing up for their email. So if you have a .something that is one of the almost 2,400 email domains blocked, you can't use that to sign up with a Thingiverse account. So does Grant just have a burner Gmail account that he uses to sign up for a bunch of shit, and then I forward it to, my main Gmail account? Is that like a good method of protection? Or like, what is a decent way to protect myself? Because from all that I'm hearing, companies are making it difficult for me to protect myself. And yes, a password manager works. Yes, good passwords work. But still, without that burner email account, you're kind of at an impasse of, I'm still giving out more information than I care to give.
You're going to give out information. The only thing that you can do is try to control it, such as a burner email. You can also, I know that you can get burner credit card numbers. There are different services that provide that. I can't think of any off the top of my head, but I know they exist, and I have no doubt Google can find them for you.
Crap. I know it. I'm thinking of it because I do use this on shady websites. What is it called? The burner credit card company. It's gonna bother me. Privacy.com. That's it. It's privacy.com. Yeah, they're great for using, if you need to have a one-time, especially, and I use it whenever I'm signing up for free trials, I'll use it through privacy, and I just give it a 1 penny limit when I'm done, and that's it. When that trial runs out, nothing happens. Apparently Apple does it now, which is awesome. I give Apple a lot of shit, but as of recently, they've been doing some really great things when it comes to security, where Google's kind of falling behind on that. And I say that using my Pixel 3a XL that now only gets like 5 or 6 hours off of the charger because I am so damn busy with emails, texts, phone calls. The phone has no battery life anymore. Apple really is doing a good job, I think.
Apple is a company who's taking cybersecurity seriously, and people are noticing, and it's starting to become good for their bottom dollar.
It is, yeah. Martini says, never use primary email for website signups. That's what a secondary email address that forwards to your primary. So if the email gets hacked, yeah, they have your forwarding, but not your data storage. And,
only issue with that is if they have access to your secondary, and yes, Thingiverse got hacked, and maybe you also have
the same
I don't know
shit, yeah.
The same email that you use for multiple websites, suddenly you're in the same boat. It's a very hard problem to solve in a way that is convenient to a person. And that's why most people don't do it. It's difficult. It's hard to be secure in a way that is very solid, but also not inconvenient. And that's where a big problem with cybersecurity comes in. You have to balance security with convenience. And sometimes you can have good security and good convenience, and sometimes you have to give up a little bit of one for the other. And those are decisions that you have to make, and they're not easy decisions.
Right. They're not at all. How can is the password manager that you're working on going to make it easier for this kind of thing? So like I said, all right, Robert, shit's messed up. I'm concerned about my data. Is there like a one button thing that's gonna, clean it up for me?
No.
Damn it. Come on, man. That's money in the bank.
Also, I have no doubt that somebody sells a service that tries to do something like that, but no.
Chris.45 says it's time for me to get a Pixel 6. It would be, but I just spent my Pixel 6 money on a new computer, so the 3A XL is going to be lasting for a little bit. Unless, of course, you want to support us directly on Patreon, because that does help me get more stuff. Yeah, we were going to live stream the PC builds to the patrons, and then I decided last minute, no, this is a bad idea. Because if something goes wrong, they're just going to sit there and watch me get frustrated. Also, my main streaming rig happens to be the computer that we're doing open heart surgery on. So that setup would have been a bitch and a half. So sorry, patrons. I did take photos for you guys. I'm going to put it in a Patreon only post. Maybe today, probably tomorrow. I have a lot going on today. Yeah, Duff says we need a nuke your accounts from orbit button.
I feel like I'd love that even without being hacked. I have plenty of accounts that I'd love nuked. things that I don't use anymore.
Could you integrate like a temporary email service into a password manager so you could
Yeah.
generate a temporary email inside of the password manager? So instead of just generating a password, it also generates an email and then automatically sets it up to forward anything for like the first 48 hours to, your personal email account, and then it goes away. Like a
Yeah.
privacy.com credit card, but for email.
You could even make the email stick around permanently forever for a forgot your password kind of thing. But stuff like that is complicated and requires server uptime, so there's no way it would be free. But
That's
absolutely,
okay.
that is something that might already exist, and if not, it could exist if somebody decided to make it.
I don't mind if that's something that I have to pay for, as long as it's something that I can, and especially for the business, right? As a business owner, it's more important to me because I need to not only protect myself, but I have to protect my clients' data, right? We have non-disclosures with a lot of people, and that kind of thing getting out is a problem. So one password apparently does this.
Perfect. There you go. 1Password. I know that they are definitely a password manager that I looked into getting myself just because I hear so many great things. And I applied for a job there at one point.
If we had more time, I would be reaching out to password manager companies being like, hey, I'm doing a video about a data breach. Would you like to sponsor that video? Because, like, that's an easy sponsor video for them, right?
Yeah, it looks like Kaspersky does as well.
Oh,
So yeah,
yeah.
apparently this is an idea. People have had it. It's great. And it again, if it's an issue of convenience. It's hard to do this. If somebody makes a software that makes it easy and people are willing to pay for it, immediately overnight, you're much more secure. And a company could go a step further. They could start partnering with different companies to even automatically update passwords behind the scenes. They're integrated into their APIs so that if I notice that there's a data breach, my Google password just changed immediately overnight. I didn't do it. My software handled it. These are all things that are possible.
That is nice. Like, that would be a great thing, and something that, no one really ever wants to think about, but also a means for a family member to access it, given a potential untimely demise. Right. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that of course, Facebook recently has this ability now with, if you can prove that a family member has passed, they will give you access to their Facebook account, and be able to, back up all that data and then, choose to remove it or turn it into a memorial page. I would like to see something like that as well, but it's like, all right, now I just got to go figure out a way to fake a death certificate and I get everything that I need. I feel like we can create the best password manager on the planet. Hackers, all they got to do is beat that one little thing.
Yes, and like I was saying, balance between convenience and security.
Gotcha.
If something is perfectly secure, it's also unusable.
Yeah, the air gap computer kind of sucks.
Yeah.
It kind of really sucks to work on.
And even an air gap computer is not perfectly secure.
No.
There are problems. Somebody could break into your house and access it.
Yep.
I've read papers about crazy smart people who are able to access information on air gapped computers without touching them. And I don't understand how it works, but
aren't they normally logging in through like a smart device? And because that computer, while it may not be connected to the exterior network, it might be connected to an internal network.
Well, then it's not truly air gapped. It's on an intranet.
That's fair. Yeah. Ours is like no internet ever. Like, it does not have an Ethernet port. It does not have a NIC at all. It is air gapped.
And so a problem with a computer like that, off the top of my head, you have to plug a USB into it.
I do, and that USB can have the problem.
Exactly.
Yep.
So like I said, for something to be perfectly secure, it's also completely unusable. And so you got to find good balances.
How do you feel about physical 2FA, like YubiKeys?
I think that they're a great idea. And there's there's the ones on your phone, like through authentication apps,
right?
Like a great thing about the physical keys is that if somebody takes your phone, they don't have the key, or because you can remotely take access over somebody's phone, but you can't really remotely take access of a thumbstick.
phones are probably easier. And like I use a YubiKey to log into my computer. So there is no password. Like, good luck. It's a
Yeah, and
50 or
there's a
60
lot of
character key. You need that physical YubiKey. And it's always worried me, what if I lose the damn YubiKey? So I actually have two YubiKeys, and there's one that's a copy, and it sits in a safety deposit box. So if my dumbass ever loses the real YubiKey, I have the backup, and then I can take a backup of the backup. And, yeah, right.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's awesome. There's actually the industry is trying to get away from passwords because passwords are just kind of inherently insecure.
It's like dangling the fruit right in front of somebody's face, right? It's like, oh, okay. I like to believe that the person that had this leak was not malicious. It was something that was just, like you said, they were shotgunning it and the fish bit. And now they just reeled it in. I'm curious as to why they waited a year to distribute it and as to whether or not they attempted to reach out to Thingiverse before.
I would personally be very surprised if they tried to reach out to Thingiverse before, because if they had, I would be surprised if they weren't going, "Ha ha, I told you so." Because, I mean, they would have in that case. The reason that I would guess that it's leaking a year later is they did the hack, they sat on it for a little bit to see if they were caught. After that, they sold it to as many people as they could, and then at some point, somebody who bought it or they themselves released it just because that's the thing that happens.
Should the community be as pissed off as they are?
I would absolutely be personally.
Okay. And if you were a Prusa, if you were Thangs, if you were My Mini Factory, Colts 3D, these are all competitors of Thingiverse. What would you be wanting to do to your users to prove, one, you're safe, two, make it simple for them to migrate?
Well, the first thing I would do is I would make sure that I am safe. Try to get one of those security audits I talked about earlier. Because if you're bragging about how safe you are, there are people out there that will try to call your bluff. That's
yeah,
just
you think you're safe, bitch? Let's see how safe you are.
Yeah, don't antagonize the hackers.
Always, never. If there is one community that you never want to poke, it is the hacker community. Don't mess with the hackers.
That and Reddit. And so, yeah, I would try to make sure I'm safe. Then I would possibly, I would try to make sure that my users know that they're safe. I would even think about, if I have a security specialist who works at the company, have them write up a blog post explaining what we do to make sure that we take care of ourselves and things that we are planning on to ensure future security. And obviously, don't give away the secrets so that now you're hackable, but it's very reasonable that you can go, we use government approved encryption services. We make sure that we salt and pepper our hashes for our passwords. We use AWS authentication, something or other. There's so many things. There's literally an entire website called OWASP that is full of, like, the OWASP exists, and OWASP is amazing. It is the open source application for security project. It is a not-for-profit, and it just is full of information of, like, how to secure yourself. And Chris.45 is saying, never tell people how you secure your stuff. And yeah, you're right. You probably shouldn't do that. That was a bad example. But there are things that you can do to show that you're doing stuff, that you care, that you're trying. You could, I don't know, explain that you get audited regularly for security. You could, I don't know. But I would try to share that I'm doing it. And then as far as transferring information, if Thingiverse has an API that I can plug into, I would be plugged into that thing yesterday. And I would make it a one button click process if I could manage, because the easier it is to do, the more people who are going to do it.
I'm hoping that one of these sites releases public information about, because a lot of them have these APIs and they've been around for a while. I want to see how many times that API call went up in the past week and a half. Since the hack or the leak specifically, how has this gone up? Right? So I
Really
want to see from
Thangs.
I want to see it from Prusa printers. I want to see it from Colts in My Mini Factory. If they all have those integrations, how many times that entire API has been used in like the past 48 hours. Apparently, Christoph45 says follow the NIST, National Institute of Security something. You're looking it up too? Fine, I can look it up.
It does now.
National Institute of Standards and Technology. Okay.
Well, yeah. Follow that, and you can say we follow NIST. If there's any kind of a certification, a fancy little badge you can put on your website, that's good. Make sure that the little lock thing is secure in your URL, meaning that you use HTTPS, because never trust a website where that's unlocked. Never trust a website that has ads on the login page.
Don't do that. Don't do that. And like in this industry, I understand that like you figure if there's 50 terabytes worth of data, just the storage cost should be a couple of grand a month on an AWS server. If you are calling that constantly, there's some money involved in that. So I can understand needing to have some way to make cash. I understand like Colts 3D, My Mini Factory, they charge users to sell their models. And I think that's kind of where you can make that happy medium where, okay, the credit card company is going to charge you 2.9% plus 30 cents. We're going to just up that to 5% plus 10 cents or something like that, to where we get a little slice of that pie, be able to cover our expenses, but also be able to pay for some of these exponential server costs, right? That's something that I look at too, because a website like Prusa Printers, a website like Colts 3D, like Thangs, like My Mini Factory, none of those are sustainable without some influx of capital, right?
Well, they can always have, like, possibly Prusa. I don't know what their plans are. They could have this website be a loss leader. Use it as a way to get the Prusa name out there. Don't make profit off of it. Just make it the best platform you can manage and become the industry standard. I can't even imagine how much money that's worth.
I mean, Prusa, as far as I'm concerned, is the industry standard for a damn good 3D printer. Creality is the industry standard for a damn cheap 3D printer, and an ANET A8 is the industry standard for a house fire. Speaking of which, next Friday, we are going to show off an actual ANET A8 that caught fire. I won't be able to have it in my hands by then, because it is quite a bit south of it's in Apollo Beach. But it caught fire inside of somebody's home. Thankfully, they were there when it happened, but it was a thermal runaway problem for all you 3D printing geeks out there. So we're going to be showing that off in the next Print Fail Friday. They have agreed to turn it on outside so that they can show it actually catching fire in a video. It was their idea, not mine. I am not going to say no to that. But yeah, is there anything that you want to close off with? I know, again, hey, pimp yourself out. I know you are looking for work right now.
Oh, I don't need to pimp myself out like that. Robert, I'm a software engineer. I program stuff, whatever. But no, get a password manager. That's the thing that I really want to say. Not enough people have them. Try to take this seriously. I know it's hard. It's difficult to try to make sure that you're taking care of your security. It's hard to do. Find ways to make it easier on yourself and care about it, because the more people who individually care about it, the more that we can make companies care about it, the more that governments can care about it, the more that the world can become just a generally safer place online. Because I love the internet. I'm on it constantly, and it really, really sucks when bad things happen to a place that I love.
It's true. Yeah, I agree. Well, cool. I think that about covers it. We covered the problem. We covered their lack of any amount of publicity about it and all the ways they can solve it.
Real quick though, Chris.45 said Prusa Printers supports two-factor authentication. So there you go. Just one more reason to move your stuff over there, get that two-factor authentication set up, make yourself secure.
Grant goes and checks his Prusa Printers account to make sure it's actually enabled. Because it's definitely stored in our LastPass. But yeah, I'm literally going to Prusa Printers right now to enable it. It's, I guess, not enabled by default, or one of the staff turned it off, and if they did that, I'm gonna beat them with my cane. But either way, I'm excited. Robert, one, thank you for coming out, hanging out with us, talking about this too. Thank you for having the expertise, because I'm like, I cannot talk about this for, like, the video, we're going to do a video on Monday about this, but it's going to be like a 10-minute video, right? That's it. And I wanted to go more in depth because I know this is, one, it's a hot topic, but two, one that not a lot of people know about. So thank you for doing that as well. And yes, apparently it is possible for you to dance while compiling. So
Yeah.
Gotta love that. Cool. Okay, well, Christoph45 said it asked me to set it up when I just created my account. I wonder if that's a new thing.
I would find that to be a very hilarious thing to implement right after this.
That would be something that Prusa would do. Like,
I love it.
Joe Prusa's the kind of guy that just likes to troll, and I love every part of it because he's very particular about how he does it. Like, anytime that Joe tweets, always look at the phrasing. Because if he's used, the words that he puts in there are generally very well thought out for very specific reasons, right? Whether it's to throw you off, to mess with you. We talked about it when the E3D Revo came out. There was only, Joe like called them out for leaking some stuff and said, no, E3D won't be on our product. There was some verbiage there that left it still open to interpretation. But yeah, I want to see companies, especially these repositories, start requiring 2FA. I'm going to go enable it on my Prusa printers, and I hope all of you that don't have it enabled do. I appreciate everybody for coming out and hanging out with us. Thank you, Robert, for coming out and hanging out. We got to hang out as well, too.
Yeah.
At some point. Maybe we can get together. The girls can cut glass and we can go do something. I don't know. Or we can hang out with them and make sure none of them need stitches.
Oh, they're fine. I trust them.
That's true. One of them's a nurse. And the other one's probably good. We're the ones that need the nurses because we do dumb things.
No, I'm fine.
All right, I'm the only one that does dumb things. Fine. I see how it is. But anyways, guys, thank you all so much. Don't forget to call your loved ones. And as always, keep making awesome. This is, what, episode 6? Yeah, episode 6. Have a good one. See you later, Mardini. See you, Bob, Chris, Zolan, Leland. Who else is in here? Dave Randolph was in here. Justin was in here. Thank you guys for coming out and hanging out. Don't forget about our Patreon if you want to support us directly. We'll see you in the next one.
Have a good one.